Yo, Sanjay Che here, people. What's going on? So, welcome back to the channel. And honestly, like, Mefa apologize for the fact that I haven't really uploaded anything for the past week. Honestly, like this past week has been like super hectic in terms of work and just this assignment I had working on, and crazy. But anyway, let's get into what we're actually here for today, and that's Avengers Endgame. Yeah, yo, people, yo. If you haven't seen Endgame, you need to see it. Honestly, like, dog, dog. Like, I don't want to like call this video like a review per se, because honestly, even the traffic getting to the theater, because of that I missed like the first half an hour of the movie when I got in. And of course, just saying, of course, you can tell by the title, I will be talking about spoilerific stuff. So yeah, spoilers ahead in this video, so yeah, you've been warned. But anyway, yeah, so I got into the theater after like crossing miles, like traffic. Um, I got in there like half an hour late, so I got in when I believe Ant-Man was, yeah, I believe when Scott arrived at the facility with Captain America and Black Widow and some of the Avengers there. So that's where I actually came in. Unfortunately, like I was pissed off the whole time. I think I'll just probably call this video like my experience like with Endgame. I plan to rewatch it probably next weekend, probably, but eh. But anyway, for what I did see for the 2.5 hours that I was there, because you know, movie's 3 hours. Honestly, like, yo, sick. Like, this movie, of course, dealt with the whole aftermath of the, you know, Thanos erasing half the universe in our Avengers Infinity War, and our heroes essentially trying to get revenge slash fix the situation by essentially gathering the Infinity Stones and basically bring back everybody to life. In a nutshell, that's the basic gist of the movie. But that synopsis or little summary doesn't really do it any justice, because this movie is such, it's the culmination of over 10 years of movies, starting with Iron Man, honestly. And it's just I know I don't want to make this a review, but let's kind of break the movie down. So, well, I can't even say how the movie starts, honestly. So, but based on some scenes, some flashback scenes, well, not really flashback. There was this one scene where Nebula's memory was accessed, and I realized that they actually killed present day Thanos. Yeah, but anyway, this movie, can I tell, it delivered on so many aspects and more. Now, it would seem like the first act of this movie was slow and pace, honestly. And even though it was slow for the first act, I'd say, for at least where I came in, as I keep saying, it was refreshingly comedic in like a strange type of way. Like, I wasn't expecting, like, you could see the sadness and the despair and the regret on a number of characters, but for the most part, like, the way they executed the direction of the Russo brothers in this first act, I definitely loved it. It was very comedic, because honestly, I think comedy is a nice way to draw us in as an audience, I mean, we're already invested in what's going to happen with these characters, but comedy is always a nice way to, you know, fill the gap when there's a slow piece, I'd say. But yeah, and honestly, it just worked. I came in when Ant-Man suggested using the quantum realm to essentially go back in time and probably stop Thanos from snapping his fingers, or at least get the Infinity Stones before Thanos. And of course, we go from there to the Avengers getting back to Tony Stark suggesting the idea, and of course, Tony being the one to turn them down at that point. Now, honestly, this movie, for the most part, represents, how should I even put it, a full circle for the character of Tony Stark. That started off this MCU as a, you know, as they say, billionaire playboy philanthropist, this rich arrogant person that was all for himself. And I know that dealing with character traits like that and the whole his whole fear of Thanos and the greater threats to come over the years have been, instrumental parts of Tony's character, coming from first Iron Man, from the first Avengers and up. But this movie really does well in, bringing things full circle for the character of Tony Stark, honestly. And those little character traits and his development over the years, they're seen in this movie, in a wonderful culmination. And of course, he does die by the end, but I found it kind of satisfactory. Like I wouldn't mind seeing him live, but I think for his character to come full circle, him dying and making the ultimate sacrifice, which is the complete 180 of what his character would have done in the first Iron Man, I think Endgame succeeded in that, at least. But not even that. Throughout the time travel aspect of this movie, where the pace is it's slower, it's building up to the final fight and all that, but it feels like it does full circle for not only Tony Stark but Captain America as well, and that's seen by even the decision he makes at the end of the movie to go back in time and live his life with Peggy. So there's that as well. Thor, of course, it kind of felt like a full circle for those three characters, I'm not gonna lie. Trust me. But yeah, that's what I want to say. It was, I think the title Endgame is so fitting because, as I said, it's just that the first acts of this movie really do a good job of really painting the slow pace with, just comedy and the development, like showcasing the development, showing where these characters are really and truly coming from, showing what they're fighting for, what they fought for, and just their character development is just on show for everyone to see. Now, what I'm going to say as well is that the time travel aspect, and to that end, more so than the time travel aspect, what Endgame really kind of succeeded in doing for me as well, because as I said, this video is all about my experience, what I got out of the movie, is that it felt like, some people like who watch movies from the MCU would say, I'm picking this set of movies to watch. Ant-Man doesn't seem that interesting. Don't think I'm gonna watch it. I'll probably watch all the Iron Man, all the Thors, all the Captain Americas. I can leave this movie out. I'm not really feeling Guardians of the Galaxy. You get the idea. Some people kind of decide that they're going to leave some movies out, and honestly, I felt like Endgame made me feel like making the decision to watch everything. It felt worth it. It just felt like every movie leading up to this was instrumental in everything that happened in the Endgame. It felt worth it watching all those movies beforehand, even the ones that didn't seem as important. Like, there's just so many subtle references to previous movies. I mean, the time travel aspects aside, because they do visit previous, one of the key things, plot points in this movie, as I said, is for them to go back in time, get the Infinity Stones, and use them to actually undo the damage that Thanos has done. And we see the characters go to points such as the first Avengers movie, the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. We had Thor and Rocket Raccoon go to the second Thor. Was it the second Thor? Yeah, the second Thor movie, The Dark World. We had Tony, Captain America, and Lang going to the first Avengers movie. We had Ronan and Black Widow going to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And let's see, who am I missing here? Oh, yeah, Hulk was there in the first Avengers movie, but he went to get the time stone, from the previous Sorcerer Supreme. Well, no, would it be, the previous person, the person that trained Doctor Strange, forgot her name. But yeah, that was the basic gist within the major plot points, and they did succeed at that. They got all the stones. They kind of decided that, hey, they came together and kind of analyzed when most of the stones were in New York, and they got those three stones. Well, they failed to get Space Stone as Tesseract. But and cause that Loki kind of escaped, but yeah, and they ended up going back to 1970. All right, but the point is, yeah, the movie really made it feel like watching all the previous movies was worth it, and it just made it feel like all, even this seemingly less important movies were actually worth it in the end. So that's what I got out of Endgame as well, and I absolutely loved it. It was just such a breath of fresh air watching it, and honestly, as I said, even the character development that was on display for everyone to see via, like, especially for Tony Stark, because there's this one point where him and Captain America, they fail to get the Tesseract from the first Avengers movie, and Tony basically comes up with a plan that, because they're using the Pym particle to travel through, make round trips through time, like back to the past and back to their time. It came to a point where they would either go back to the present after failing to get the Space Stone, the Tesseract, or they'd make a gamble and jump to 1970 to get more Pym particles. So that's what they do. And when they do, Tony bumps up into his dad and Captain America into Peggy, but he didn't interact with her though. But it's true, like, even the interactions, because I was even surprised to see that Tony, like, I wasn't expecting a 5-year time skip in this movie, and just to see Tony have a daughter and all of that, that was cute. I'm not gonna lie. And to even relate that the fact that he has a daughter to his conversation that he had with his dad back in 1970, I think that played a big role in showing where Tony's character has come. Honestly, it kind of even felt like he made peace with his dad finally, even though I guess you could say it did before, but I feel it was solidified this time. So there was that. Thor, no. Thor, what else say about Thor? Yo, Thor Whis. Yo, honestly, ever since Thor Ragnarok, and I think that's the case with a lot of people, Thor Ragnarok into Infinity War to Endgame, Thor has become like one of my favorite characters in the MCU. He's the growth in his character and the execution, how his character is portrayed on screen, hilarious, people. Like it's maddening. Apparently it was a case where they killed President Thanos, but Thanos said that they couldn't undo the damage and they had to live the 5 years in regret and all of that. And it seems like Thor kind of took that to heart, because he's just been in New Asgard and I think that was in the comics as well, just kind of wallowing in self-pity and drinking, and he has a belly belly now as well, so that's ridiculous, totally out of shape, completely bearded up again, and he's been playing Fortnite, so product placement for you. But yeah, it was funny. Thor and Hulk, Professor Hulk, was funny. Those two characters were like the funniest thing on screen for me, honestly. But we got to see some development for him as well in this movie. And honestly, even the trailers for Endgame kind of portrayed Thor, Captain America, and Tony Iron Man to be having the biggest developments in this movie, and that kind of was the case. Because we even see the scene when Thor went back to the events of Thor: The Dark World, Thor 2, and he kind of got the chance to see his mother again. Because no matter how you slice and dice it, Thor has been dealing a lot of failures since Thor Ragnarok. I mean, Asgard is gone, a lot of people is dead, his mom's dead, his father's dead, his brother's dead. He failed to stop Thanos. So yeah, it's understandable, and it's just kind of seeing Thor overcome that regret and actually find his place in terms of what he needs to do in the world and in his path. It's really and truly that really sells Thor's character in this movie. And even by the end, he decides to join up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, or the Asgardians of the Galaxy. And he seems like he's cutting out a new path for himself, which is good, because that means that there's still more stories for to be told with Thor. Even though Iron Man and Captain America's stories seemingly have reached their peak and they're seemingly the end of their stories, Thor still seems like he has potential to go on. And I think that's because his first two movies didn't really do much for his character, I'd say. So I think Thor could have at least one or two more movies, or at least some cameo, continuous appearances in other titular movies like part of Guardians of the Galaxy. So yeah, I think that was well. Characters like Black Widow making the decision to kill herself, to get the Soul Stone and stopping Hawkeye or Ronin. I think that was good for the fact that she's finally found a family and just decides that, hey, I need to get the Soul Stone. I gotta protect my family. I gotta get things to act the way they were, and ensuring that Hawkeye wasn't the one to sacrifice himself, because he still has if this works, that he has a family to go home to. So I mean, there's that, and there's just so much to cover here. Um, what else? What else can I say? I mean, I've talked about how the movie made me feel. It was hype. It was hype. It was hype. But let's talk about like the fight scenes, because one thing that I was kind of pondering while watching this movie was like, where's the final battle going to take place? Is it going to take place in the past? What's going to happen? How is this going to go? And we end up having Thanos from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, or basically pre Infinity Gauntlet, the pre Finger Snap, be the final person to fight. So they basically kill Thanos twice in this movie, which is crazy when I told somebody. But it ends up that Nebula from 2014, they capture Nebula from it would be 2023 when you think about it, since there was a 5-year time skip. Yeah, they capture her and they switch out her parts. There's this golden plate on Nebula's head for the future one, the present day one, and the one from 2014 that still works for Thanos basically took it and basically played double agent or spy, and got Thanos from 2014 to 2023. And this is after they had essentially gotten the Infinity Stones and snapped and brought everybody back. Yeah, so Thanos comes from 2014. He demolishes the Avengers headquarters and essentially is here to collect Infinity Stones. And this is essentially the setting of the final battle, where we have Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man going in and making a decision. Hey, they're gonna kill him. And yo, I'm not gonna lie, when Thor calls Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, and I'm like, yo, the theater erupted. I'm like, I turned to my friend. I was like, dog, Thor is OP. Yo, not gonna lie, that was hype. And then just seeing Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America go up against Thanos was epic. But I think one of the craziest parts, I had a problem with that fight. Because I have three, but arguably only two problems with the movie. And that it's piercing, but the piercing is justified with all the development that's on display, the comedy, and it didn't, even though it was slow, it didn't feel too dragged out. All things felt like it worked together for the ending that we got. So the piercing's not really a problem. It was worth it. But I honestly felt like they nerfed Thor. Yeah. I was expecting him to be more powerful when he had Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, but I guess the excuse that he's out of shape, but I don't know, I feel like it's a dumb excuse, but But anyway, apart from that, I'll get to the third problem that I had with the movie later on. But anyway, and even the third problem is arguably not a problem, really, based on the setup for the last part. But anyway, yeah, going in. So when Captain America, okay, calm down. Thanos is kicking their ass. so there's that. And then when Thanos is about to kill Thor at one point, like Mjolnir just like, you think Thor's the one calling Mjolnir, but no. When you look, it's Captain America, and then Captain America running, and then like, I'm gonna throw the shield, and then like Mjolnir. I'm like, it was like a 5 seconds of theme thing, but it did epic. It was epic. For the most part, when he went up against Thanos there. But Thanos in the end kind of proved way too much, even for the three of them. And I still feel that I mean, I know that Thanos the comic is like way stronger than all of them anyway, even without Infinity Gauntlet. But I just felt like Thor was nerfed for this movie, honestly. So there's that. And it's at this point that we have Captain America, whose shield is actually mostly chopped up and broken. At this point, he gets off, he straps on the shield back tight out to his arm that I think was injured. And then, like, Thanos says, he's gonna enjoy destroying the planet and all of that. And this is when, like, they call in his armies. I'm like, oh shit. But, like, the funny thing watching Infinity War for me, like, at this point in the movie, like how I did say you're in a false sense of security. I think I was in a false sense of despair. I'm coining a phrase here. Because at this point, I had forgotten that they had brought everyone back. Because when they got the Infinity Stones, Professor Hulk was the one that actually put on the gauntlet and snapped his fingers to bring everyone back. But by the point where Thanos brought his army in, I had forgotten that everyone was back. So at that point, Cap gets like a incoming transmission from Falcon, and he's like, on your left. Then when I see the force, dog, that Black Panther walk through. Yo. Yo, but not gonna lie. Like, I think I lost my mind a lot of times in this movie. Like, and this one was like probably one of the biggest ones. Like, just seeing Black Panther come in, and then all the people that were snapped coming in. We got the Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man coming back. We have Valkyrie and the new Asgardians. We have Strange, and the force was just whoop. I'm like, yo. I was like losing it in the theater there, honestly. Honestly, like madness, brother. Yo, and then it's like, in my head, I'm saying like this is the real Infinity War. But granted, it technically is, because Infinity War was just supposed to be Infinity War Part 1 and 2, so it technically still is Infinity War, but you get the idea. So it's at this point that we have Thanos' armies clashing with the Avengers, and we have the iconic line from the comics finally being said by Captain America: Avengers assemble, and it's just all out war from this point. And honestly, I was impressed. It was very satisfying to see all the action on screen, all these characters that we've spent the last 10 years watching, just working together. And yo, that I truly not even knew. Honestly, God, I'm so tired. It's like, God, it was fun. And then even Captain, because at the point where I came into the movie, I hadn't seen Captain Marvel. I'm like asking, where's Captain Marvel? And just even seeing her coming in at the end to help out, like, it was madness. It was awesome. And by the end, we have at one point where Thanos, despite all the efforts of everybody, Thanos still got the Infinity Gauntlet, and before he did, Doctor Strange showed Tony, like, he held up one finger. And of course, we're brought back to, we aren't giving a flashback, but the point of him holding up his one finger to Tony was that to say that, remember in Infinity War, they said out of the 14 million plus futures that Strange saw, there is only one one of them that they won. And it's at that point Tony knew what he had to do. He got the Infinity Stones from Thanos, and of course he himself did the finger snap. Thanos earlier in the movie said when they killed him that, I am inevitable. And he said the same thing here when he tried snapping his fingers after getting the Infinity Gauntlet. But by that time, Tony had stolen the stones from him without him realizing. And this is like the perfect end. Tony basically erases Thanos' army and Thanos himself with his own finger snap using the gauntlet. But he says it by saying, I am Iron Man. And that was like complete full circle, as I was saying earlier. Because that's what he said at the end of the first Iron Man movie when he was talking to the press and said, I am Iron Man. So, honestly, full circle. The Avengers, they win, they beat Thanos from 2014 at least, and his armies are gone. And of course, since the Infinity Stones were too much for Tony to handle, so he eventually dies, and we have a scene of War Machine realizes he's gonna die, and Spider-Man just it was sad. Tears actually came to my tears actually came to my eye. I'm like, yo, Janu. And Pepper was saying, "Yo, Tony, you can finally rest," and that was important because early in the movie, they didn't have to go through the events of this movie. It was actually Tony's decision because Tony was the one that helped to really figure out the mechanics behind time travel. It was he was instrumental in the plan, but he didn't have to go through with it. He figured it out before telling anyone. Well, he told Pepper, and it was like, I could go through with this, or I could just live with what happened and go upstairs, get some sleep. And Pepper asked him, "But would you be able to rest?" And it was like a crucial moment. It was Tony kind of like seeking permission to go ahead with this plan, and it was important for him because if he didn't, he wouldn't really have had any peace, really and truly. He wouldn't have conquered his failures. He tried going up against his fears that he was developing through starting back from Avengers and Iron Man 3, and he failed, and he just wasn't having any peace. And by going through with the plan and going through all of this, he's finally found the peace, and he can finally rest, as I said. And of course, by the end, everyone has a funeral for Tony, and Captain America cares about the stones where he took them. But this kind of leads me into my third problem, where I want to say that Captain America went back in time and spent his life with Peggy, and he appears back like 5 seconds later, after he cares about the stones as an old man to Bucky Barnes and Falcon. But the way that time travel seems to work in this the MCU, it seems very similar to Dragon Ball in terms like when you travel back and change somebody, create like a branching timeline. And that was kind of confirmed with when the Hulk went for the time stone and visited I keep forgetting her name, the same woman that taught Strange. But that would mean that when Captain America went back and grew old, we shouldn't have saw him again, really and truly, but we did. But it's like I was thinking that it's a problem, but at the same time, I won't really use it against the movie because there's a scene when they were essentially discussing how time travel works, and they were saying, yeah, they were drawing like references from a lot of these pop culture movies and all of that. But to me, them discussing time travel at that point before they did it was like them saying, like the writers telling me that, hey, really and truly, we don't know how time travel works, so anything goes with how we execute it in this movie. And that's why I found Captain America growing back old and him appearing there not to be a problem. But by the end, he decided to pass on the shield to Falcon, to Sam, to become the new Captain America. And he didn't die, but he's still alive, but he's an old man, so he's basically retired at this point. And it's very crucial because he basically reconciled with Tony in this movie, and seeing Tony making the ultimate sacrifice, I feel like, and he's even said himself he's taking Tony's advice to actually go and have a life, and he did. And it just feels like the culmination of a lot of things, honestly. And of course, after the funeral, and what happened after that again? I can't even remember, man. But it pretty much ended there, with them even putting the proof Tony Stark has a hard arc reactor on his grave. And it was a funeral attended by everybody in the Marvel universe, like, well, not everybody, but the main persons that we've known over the course of all of these movies. So that was the end of it. This movie felt like the end. It is the end of an era. Not even felt like it is. It was the end of an era. And honestly, I would give this movie at least a 9.5 out of 10. Honestly, like I would even say perfect. Honestly, because it was that good. You had the character development on display. You had the subtle references to the old movies. Hail Hydra. guess I deserve that one. Yeah, that, and like, man, it's the reference to the old movies. made all the movies before this felt important. You had the action, you had the epic moments, you had the build up and payoff for the slow pacing. You had more than substance, even in the parts that were slow paced. But honestly, like I think this is the best superhero movie of all time. I don't know how they're going to top this, honestly. But anyway, let me know what you thought. I've been recording for like 30 minutes. It's crazy, honestly. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought about Avengers Endgame if you haven't watched it. Well, if you're watching the spoiler review, I assume you've watched it. But well, it's not spoiler review, spoiler experience. But I guess you could call it a review. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought. If you haven't watched it yet, I would advise go watch it as soon as possible because this movie is to die for. Sanjay Uchiha here. Rate, comment, subscribe. I am behind on stuff. Boruto discussions. And yes, One Punch Man episode 3 was awesome. I still need to talk about that. But yeah. Yo. Anyway, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This has been my experience with Avengers Endgame. I'll see you with Spider-Man Far From Home? Yeah. See you guys.